Yeah, once again, revolutionary greetings to all of you. Feel most welcome. This is Comrade Pidgino Dimengo. It's a pleasure to have you again. Welcome to our Consciousness Study Group. This is our usual Saturday conversation where we converse and have a conversation in line with Africa unification. So we look at all aspects. We check on what's going on across the Africa in terms of news update. We have some discussions and also we have presentations. So today, of course, we'll be looking at what's going on in the continent. We try to balance the balances of force, which is the forces at balance, the positive and negative forces, whether Africa is positively moving towards unification or moving far away from the unification. Then we end up by having a presentation, which today, of course, Dr. Larry Jones will be presenting to us. Then we have question and answer, and then we come up with what's the way forward as we close our session for today. So once again, feel most welcome. Thank you for your presence and for being with us here today. So I'll start with current affairs. I'll go straight to Sister Tapua. Sister, it's a pleasure to see you around, and let us know what's going on in Zimbabwe since the last time we conversed.
Right. We're having an economic meltdown right now. Well, what I term an economic meltdown, because the new currency that was introduced was artificially pegged at a level that was not matched with how the people felt about the currency and just general confidence. So yesterday, or the day before yesterday, the big companies could not cope with the gazetted price rate for the Zimbabwean currency to the US. So they had stopped producing the same amount of levels of goods they would. So there was a shortage in the market in terms of goods. And they were saying it's unsustainable for the government to continue saying the rate should be this when in the black market it's gone way, way, way above, almost twice or three times as much as what the government was saying. So yesterday, they announced that the rate has doubled, which means, for example, an ordinary person who was earning 2,000 ZiG moves from earning 120 US dollars to 40 US dollars. And that has introduced a crisis situation, because it's end of the month, people live from hand to mouth, and they can hardly pay their fares to get back to work. However, the Zimbabwean population has been beaten so much, people are just resigned to their fate. And I'm not sure what it's going to take for people to stand up and say something. It's very sad, very, very sad. The availability of the ZiG has been in question. They've not.
Hello, sister. We are losing you a bit. I don't know if it's my network or your network.
Much of the note printed or the coins printed. So I think it's the reception here that's a problem, because I've tried to move from where I usually am to somewhere else. I'll continue moving to see if I can get a better reception. But that is what is happening in Zimbabwe at the moment. And people's minds are focused on feeding their families and less on possibly finding a solution through African unification, because I think that's what we need at the moment. That's all I can say for now. Thank you.
Sister, how do you see this? Thank you for that update. But you know that Zimbabwe was trying to have a currency that's backed on, I don't know, diamond or gold, which might appear to be either an African initiative to be more of independent from other currencies. And now then we are getting to a level that even that appears not to be working out perfect. How do this resonate with you? How do you think about this in the attempt of, as Africa, we look at a unified Africa with its own currency? What lesson do we derive from this, or what do you tell from this?
My personal opinion is accountability, because we've been on this road before, where we're told one thing, but people in offices in high places are doing something else. Right now, they've actually reduce the amount of currency that Zimbabweans can leave the country with from 10,000 to 2,000 US dollars. And it all sounds arbitrary, and it all sounds like it's meant for the small man, because the big men take jets out with as much allowance as they want, with lots of people and a big entourage and so on. So people have lost faith. People have totally lost faith, and people are just focused on looking after number one. And it's very sad, very sad.
Okay, thank you for that update. Indeed, that really shows us where we are moving as a continent. Because as we envision to move towards a unified and a common direction, we still find that there will be challenges either internally or externally that might be geared towards stopping us to that direction. Whether it may be engineered, or either that it can fail, or either it's just lack of our accountability, as you're saying, to do what is right and act rightfully.
Yes, I think the problem is, for example, if I start with the reaction that Africa had to our elections, or just Southern Africa had towards our elections, it's Zambia that was the chairperson of the SADC that stood up. But everybody else around, I mean, it's the boys' club. They did not say a thing. They actually came in and inaugurated the sitting president, despite all the obvious points that had been raised against the validation of this vote. And they still went ahead. So what we have here is a situation where we really need to work at, I'm not sure what to do with our leadership, because it's not our leadership. It's themselves standing up for their own interests, and that's it. They're not standing up for Africa, for us, I'm hoping maybe a lesson or two will be learned from the Sahel situation, where people coalesced and just got together and got on with it. Just one glimmer of hope. At an agricultural show in Harare, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, when the honorary persons appointed to speak at the occasion was the Mozambican
Sister, we are losing you. Sorry, I unmuted you accidentally. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, right. I was talking about the Mozambican president, who is making an effort to maybe try and get us aligned with them, because he is seeing that as Zimbabwe, we're getting into a situation where we have presidents every 40 years, whereas Mozambique has been able to, despite some of the challenges that it has, changed from one leader to the other, which is not I mean, it's not pointing us necessarily towards unification, but it's just acknowledging that people respect the rules that have been put on the ground. And I think Africa, and particularly Southern African leaders, have to stand up and say something, do something, because Zimbabweans just continue to emigrate. That has become their solution. They will go anywhere. They're in Siberia right now, or anywhere else on earth. We might end up on the moon. I don't know. But it's really dire.
Thank you for that, sister. Yes, indeed. On the aspect of migration, I think everybody's allowed to move anywhere they want to move in Africa. But also there are factors that are making people to move, because maybe they're looking for better resources, something like that. But every part of Africa has enough resources. Only thing that's like is leadership to make it abundant for all. Because it's abundant. Even in Zimbabwe, we have billionaires. Not that we don't have billionaires, we have them. So if people can make billions in Zimbabwe and other people run away that they can't make billions there, they're going to look for billions elsewhere. That tells you the psyche of their country. So it's very important that we really have to address the root cause of this. And thank you for raising that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers.
Brother Carrington, any update from wherever you are, whether is where you are there or watu wa Murima here in the country?
Hi everyone. By referring to watu wa Murima, we can say Avandu or people or Bantu. Brother Pidgin is talking about the possible impeachment of the Deputy President of Kenya by political forces involving the President and the former Prime Minister, who is the de facto leader of the opposition. As has been the case in several African countries, there are no principles here, just interests. So our president and the deputy president's interests, which basically are just corrupt deals, let's not label them as something very sophisticated, have misaligned, and therefore the president has aligned with the opposition to possibly impeach our deputy president. And the drama of Kenya continues, and the needs and wants of young people continues to be ignored by the political class in Kenya, as it is everywhere in the continent. But nonetheless, that is not what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on continental geopolitics. First, it was very interesting when the president of Kenya went to the United Nations. He was basically avoided by other African leaders. Brother Pidgin will speak possibly more to this. And he was avoided by other world leaders, basically, because of his handling of the protests and his refusal to listen to his own citizens, while at the same time boasting to other countries that Kenya is a quote-unquote robust democracy. France, the one thing the president was able to get was that France wanted to hold the France-Africa Summit in Kenya. This is very interesting because Kenya is not Francophone, obviously. But Macron and Ruto have become very good friends. In fact, closer together than Ruto and Biden and other people. And therefore, for the first time, this thing is going to be held in an quote-unquote Anglophone country. I don't like using these divisions. We can divide the continent in very African native ways rather than this way. Kushite, Bantu, Nilotes, etc. But anyway, it is interesting geopolitically because there's going to be a contest, and this is going to introduce very interesting times to Kenya, possibly. And I would really want to know whether these West African countries, for example, the Sahel Confederation, will attend this meeting, and whether it will be a genuine meeting or a meeting for Ruto to further try to push Western or Eurocentric or Franco-centric interests in East Africa and Africa by extension. President Ruto tried to hold a climate meeting, an African climate meeting in the United Nations, which only him and the head of the African Union attended. So it was very funny how much Kenya has lost in its geopolitical influence in Africa in the space of just 2 to 5 months. A manifestation of carelessness of African leaders. Anyway, this is a space to watch. We are also watching the situation in Tanzania very, very closely. There is a pretend dictator in Tanzania, sadly, who is abducting members of the opposition and trying to pay Kenyan social media influencers to push her message in the social media sphere, which is very disappointing. But nonetheless, East Africa is going through interesting times. And this is something to watch to see how it proceeds. I have trust in CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, in English, the Party of the Revolution, which is the governing party in Tanzania, in its ability to try and regulate the excesses of its leaders. Remember, it was able to send the great Julius Nyerere home. So I have relative confidence that the CCM in the long term might regulate the president, but this is yet to be seen. If they do not do it, they will go the way of other African nationalist parties. They will lose political power and disappear from Tanzania. So we will see what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrington. This issue of Watu wa Murema and the fact that the deputy president is to be impeached just basically because he has been fighting for his people, how do this sit well with most of course, there are so many claims that are being put forward that he's been having misconduct and whatever. And now at a continental level, is also an issue that we should move beyond a community or a tribe to speak of a continental aspect. People feel that by him fighting for his people is more tribal and contrary to the doctrines of whether the constitution and the rest. But him being impeached, how do you see it in terms of the unification of people of Kenya? Can it not spawn more of what you call tribal conflict that then takes us away from the unification?
Thank you very much, Brother Pigeon. My instinct here is first, the deputy president, I don't know if you watched the full interview he had on Citizen. He was basically complaining about how he is mistreated personally. He does not carry the interest of Central Kenya, but he is perceived by Central Kenya people to carry their interests. So my instinct is that this will eventually, or at least a huge proportion of Central Kenya. There are some people in Central Kenya who are waking up, just like everywhere in the country, becoming skeptical of our current political leadership in general. But for those people who think that the deputy president carries the interests of Central Kenya people, it does seem like an attack on Central Kenya and could further destabilize the country, which I don't think is a very clever thing to do. It weakens the president, although he does not see it. It weakens the president, weakens the political hold of the deputy president. The only person, in fact, I see benefiting from this is Raila Amolo Odinga. If his bid for the AU fails, he basically holds the political future of the country in his hands because he can decide to request the members of parliament to vote to keep the deputy president in power. And this will have serious political implications for the political power of the president. So he is basically the one to watch. And the president and the deputy president have put themselves in a very compromising position, just like the previous president, Uhuru Kenyatta, put himself in a very compromising position. They've given the leader of the opposition a lot of power. It will destabilize Kenya in the long run. It will continue destabilizing the country. And remember, this tribe of young people, young Kenyans, young Africans, their wants in going to protests, their needs, their demands have not been met and are actively being ignored. And that problem will explode in the faces of our political class. Again, it is going nowhere.
Okay. Now, in this aspect where now Kenya is hosting France or the French government here, well, part of Africa is sending away the French government, Kenya is playing to host the French government and the French embassy here, even irrespective of them not being colonies, like the so-called French. How do this play to the continental peace and unity? Because you realize that there's one part that is trying to liberate itself from French, and then there's one part of the continent that's trying to welcome French, and host like you're the enemy, your neighbor chase an enemy, then you welcome the enemy in your house, the enemy of your neighbor. How do you find this in terms of our progress and our struggle for a unified and liberated Africa?
I am going to make a prediction. And the prediction here might be highly suspect. I might be wrong. But Raila Amolo Odinga, because of the political choices of William Ruto, might end up losing the AU chair. This will antagonize most of West Africa, right? This antagonizes most of West Africa. William Ruto has already antagonized most of East Africa. Right? He made enemies with Sudan the other day. We are not in very good terms with Uganda, although they are trying to resolve their issues. We are trying to resolve our issues with Uganda as Kenya. Not very well placed with Tanzania either. So my suspicion is that the president is continuing to antagonize more Africans at the cost of looking good to European geopolitical actors. And this to me is not very clever. That's why I'm very, very interested in seeing how many people will attend the France Africa Summit and how many West African heads of state will attend this summit. I think it's a very interesting thing because it communicates underlying geopolitical tensions in the continent and in the world, by the way, by extension. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brother Carrington, for that. Sister Tapo, do you have any question to Brother Carrington or any member in regards to his analysis on what's going on in Kenya, in line with the liberation or unification?
None at the moment, thank you.
Okay. Ras Pala from South Africa. What's going on in South Africa? You're still dancing the GNU agreement.
Yes, my lord. Give thanks and Peleg. Yes, and family. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, in South Africa, my lord. Basically, we just celebrated this thing of heritage. And in this issue, there were two key points that were raised that I feel I can highlight so far. The first one is the issue of Pan-Africanism agenda in South Africa being systematically being put aside by the implementation of that Bella Bill, which is an act from the Constitution of South Africa that was recently signed by the president, of which they first had a fight over it and there still are opposition coming. This bill, basically, I'll just highlight one thing about it. It says that children now in South Africa from the age of kindergarten will be taught sex, basically, you see. And then children from the age of 12 years can have abortion without having a parental consent, you see. So there's this issue. Then another big issue is this issue of this white guy who just became the Minister of Home Affairs here in South Africa, basically saying that we must tighten the borders to prevent the African immigrants. So they say like Kenya, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, and Nigeria and other Africans who come here to South Africa to try and find an opportunity. So basically they say they need to tighten the screws and check the visas, everything for the black people here who come into South Africa, allegedly to come and take jobs from the black South Africans. And then we must invite Chinese to invest in South Africa. So basically they were declaring these past days officially. Although we as African revolutionary already knew when we were talking about these things that the Chinese are trying to take over Africa economically. Now they've publicly announced it that they will be inviting Chinese to invest more in South Africa, and actually trainers, professionals, engineers of China are going to be coming in now in South Africa to sort of, in their way, help develop Africa, which begs the question that don't we have enough African engineers and scientists who can do the same job? But yeah, that's the politics we are dealing with here in South Africa. So I'll just add those 2 points for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Raspala. In regards to inviting Chinese, I know many countries in Africa have gone to China based on the recent China-Africa summit. Don't you see this is a way that Africa might get back to the traps of neo-colonialism now and being colonized by another country like China and the rest? Because as much as they'll be controlling our resources, they'll start dictating a lot. You remember the story of the Nigerian airline? So how do you see this to you?
Yeah, son of the lake. It's like that, my brother. I'm with you 100% because I've heard that basically when they combine these 54, as Elder Joshua Makunga said, these 54 African provinces, when they combine the debts we owe China, it amounts to 72 billion. So you can imagine how difficult will it be for the future African leaders who are going to take over from our reigns, who will have to deal with this huge amount of debt, 72 billion, and it will still go up because here are the white people who are owning South Africa saying they want more Chinese investment in South Africa. So yeah, it's like that, my friend.
Thank you. I was trying to read Dr. Larry's comment here on South Africa being listed as a private company or private corporation in the U.S. Stock Exchange. I think something like that.
Yes, my lord. Many years people have been saying this thing, and based on how USA is using DA and other right-wing proxies and political parties and NPOs to threaten us like they did with Helen Zille last month when she said that if the ANC does not listen to DA and there are reforms that they want to put for South Africa, then the investors are going to pull out of South Africa and then we're going to suffer. That's what she said publicly. So yeah.
Maybe I could just add to that a little bit, if that's okay. Well, South Africa remains a country. It's not listed as a private company, even though there are various claims on the social media that the U.S. registers South Africa as a private company. That is not true. There are some narratives during Mandela regime, which basically gave some kind of false narrative to that interpretation. But I want us to not to kind of propagate false claim, false information. We need to be authentic. We need to fact check whatever we hear. And in this on this forum, we need to know what is real. So anything we're saying is fact checked and is accurate and is correct. That is the reason why we are here, and that is to make sure that we are promoting and representing Africa in the right light. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm back. There's something that unfortunately happened to my laptop. So I went offline a bit. Well, now back. Yes. I was commenting on this issue of so many African countries inviting the Western countries for investment in Africa, which I'm finding it more of not is a trap at the end of the day, because they'll need some return, some profit on their investment. And if you check, some of these trade deals are not favorable enough. Like what's Kenya struggling today with Adani, which is an Indian company that want to take over the control of the airport of Kenya. So these things do not sound well to us. There might be a good excuse for government to invite such, But I think Africa, as Nkrumah said, have to look inward and see how they can cooperate each other or within or amongst each other as a countries so that they can develop without the external forces or relying on the external forces. So I see it as a trap, yes, but let's see how these things goes. But then we must also come up with counter solutions. Why are Africans trying to look for loans from wherever, China and the rest? Why don't we then come up with some mechanism, even if it's the black community across the globe can come up with a bank that can put their resources together and then they loan African countries, something like that, so that we avoid African countries going to seek loans from people who don't have interest for Africa at all. But okay, thank you for that. Salfil, can let us know we are about to have a presentation from Dr. Larry. Salfil, I know it's the first time or second time here. Kindly feel free to unmute yourself and let us know what's going on from wherever you are. Then Ndadema Fole is also here with us. Once we're done with that, we'll move on. I'll try to send another reminder for members to join. And I've received some apologies for people who might not be able to make it over. But there will be more people who will be still waiting for this recording on our YouTube channel. So Salfil, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please unmute yourself. Salfil. Okay, Ndadema Fole, what's going on in Lesotho, South Africa?
Not much. There's nothing new to report, except our king offered intervention at the UN based on our historical foundations of Morena Muhlomi and Morena Mushweshwe, that their qualities could be shared, which is maybe what you'll be aware I've been peddling for a long time. So I'm hoping that we may be moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Any other update from any other part before I get to Dr. Larry? Or give any updates or anything he has come across in regards to what's going on in the continent, outside the continent, before he proceeds to his presentation that will be interested on, as he'll be presenting on us and our heritage and our history as a foundation to our unification as a people. Any update? Somebody who feel like they're missing? Yes, Sister Tapua.
Yes, just to add something that I maybe might have overlooked. Our president was inaugurated as the chairperson of the SADC, and that's a big body of the Southern African countries. He was expected to have turned up at the United Nations Development something in New York, and he didn't go. That was unusual because he's always turning up at all these occasions. Unfortunately, we have to listen to some of the rumors that are going on in the grapevine because it's made people speculate, basically, that he seems afraid because on his birthday, the helicopter that he was supposed to be in crashed and it has unnerved him. So he's thinking that maybe some plot is brewing somewhere. His intelligence seems to be saying that to him. So he did not want to move. He could not move because he felt if I go away, there might be a coup. So things are really unstable. So the combination of the economic situation and the nervousness of both the ordinary people because of the economic situation and the nervousness of the leadership of the country because of the political situation is just making things really untenable. I thought I should say that because I felt it was let down for the Southern African countries that he's supposed to represent, that he did not go there to speak either on behalf of Zimbabwe or to be there in person. I've heard that he had a presentation on Zoom or something like that, but I've not listened to what he said. So I thought I should add that. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, sister. Of course, we are just coming fresh from the vice president for Malawi's assassination, you see, and other attempts that are going on So it's very possible of such. Of course, our President Ruto stayed in Kenya for almost 2 months during the Gen Z protest. I know he was afraid that if he walk out, maybe the Gen Zs could take over. But now that he seems to be able to control the Gen Zs by bringing the opposition in and trying to arrest, of course, he has arrested so many young people. So many young people have been killed and abducted. He has instilled fear within the younger people. And then now he's comfortable to work with Raila Odinga. Instead of working with the deputy president, he took Raila Odinga to China for a business trade and an African summit. Now he's taken Raila to UN, where Raila has been actually campaigning at a sideline of events for his AUC position. Personally, I have a bad feeling about Raila's candidature because I feel it's a US-backed candidature. And I think it was a handshake deal between Raila and Ruto so that they could make peace in Kenya here. And I'm feeling it not positive about it anyway, but I'm also concerned of how young people have been treated by the system across the continent. What happened to Nigeria, where young people protested still are arrested up to date. Our friends who are still in hiding in Nigeria. The reaction of police officers in young Ghanaians is coming up. And we are looking forward also to the election in Ghana that is about to take place in December. So there's a lot of things going on and moving on in the continent. But there's also a symptoms of the continent borrowing much, either loan from this country, loan from whatever. There's a lot of African leaders going out for tour, making deals with either Europe or the US or China. And this clearly tells you that we are not in any way moving towards a liberated or a united continent. Because every African leader is just after getting into a plane to walk out. Anything, I'm going to China, I'm going to where. There's less of African leaders moving internally for any collaboration or any development. These are very worrying situation for us as a people. And I think we must see how we master some mechanisms to get out of this. I don't know, is the mentality of our leaders that are feeling like the solution to them is only out of Africa. And it's almost across, except the Eritrean president. I really like that Eritrean president because he doesn't care about the loans from anywhere else. Eritrean president has been running. In fact, I was told with a friend from Djibouti, my mate, that in Eritrea, there's no even single NGO. No single NGO. Eritrea has no debt of anybody. It does not borrow from IMF or World Bank or anywhere else. And they've been able to dig or to have 960 boreholes that are supplying water to Eritrean citizens. So it's a symptoms and evidence that African can do it. You see what our young brother Burkina Faso is trying to do? He's trying to develop and make anything else. But now I've seen the EU is now interested. Qatar came in that they want to partner. And that's the way they do it. They always come in that we want to partner with you. But in the long run, what do? They overtake and overshadow everything else. So Sister Tapua, once again, back to you, and then I get to Dr. Larry's presentation. Dr. Larry requested that we play some recording that I'll be playing prior to his presentation. Yes, Sister Tapua.
I just want to point out that the leadership that we have is not free to make decisions, because if it is free to make decisions, then I would surely think they wouldn't be making these decisions, because it's in the interest of the West that we're in debt and that we're indebted to them. And it shows the gravity of the situation that the West is in, because they need to make sure that we are indebted to them so that they survive. They will not let us. That's why, for example, the coalition that the countries of the Sahel got into ruffled feathers, which is why France is now coming to Kenya, because they need us more than we need them. Because at the point at which we are, they're convincing our leaders that they can offer us something, but they're offering the leadership only, not the people of Africa. And it is the leadership that is selling us out, if I might use that word. So I think we also need to be conscious that the leadership that we have is not ours. It's almost like what happened during the slave trade, when theories were brought out that, oh, it was so and so and so and so who fought against slavery. But they don't talk about the Africans standing up for themselves, about Haiti standing up for themselves. And the Europeans noticing that it's untenable. So they had to come up with another form of slavery. The same thing is happening. That's why Kwame Nkrumah was talking about us standing up together as a unit, because he realized that this kind of people and their intentions, they morph. As we try to struggle to free ourselves, they'll morph into something else. So if our leadership doesn't realize that, if they think China is being kind, or because they helped us in our liberation, or whatever argument they come up with, they're just blind. They've been chosen because they're the appropriate ones who will make this West survive, off us, off our backs. So we just need to forget about them and find a way. We've got to find a way. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sister. Thank you very much for that. Yes, indeed, we need to find a way. I want to give Brother Dr. Larry actually to do a presentation. But Dr. Larry, after I play this video for you, at least feel free to inform us or introduce yourself to what you do more, or other aspects of what you do, and how maybe we can be able to come in, or opportunities that are available to people like us. Because I know you engage in a lot of platforms, and I think this also should be a platform where we share what you do, and how can people get engaged, or advantages or opportunity available to our people. Because in one way or the other, we also help to build a community and build ourselves as a people. So permit me to
before you play, can I just hold on. Hello? Yeah.
I think you have two of them, but yes. Welcome. I think you have two devices.
Yeah, just 1 second. Yes, I do. Hello? Okay. Just gonna stop it.
There's still an echo on one of the devices.
Okay, I'll put it away. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think the last speaker, my dear sister, I'm sorry I can't remember your name now, but you can remind me. The last speaker mentioned something about they need us more than we need them. This is one of the reasons why I needed to play this first. Professor Howard Nicholas, an economist, a renowned economist from Netherlands, presented some powerful statistics and data in one of his presentations in 2015. But a clip out of that has been taken, which I'd like people to listen to. One, to kind of hear from him directly what we are up against, and how my presentation will lead to that, to kind of just share some of the struggles of our people over the years, and how we can move forward. Because this platform should not just be where we come in every week. In my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm sure that is not what it is, but for us to kind of talk about what's going on in other countries, but we also need to be preferring solution. And I'll be sharing some way forward every week. I'd like to be part of the people who deliver some news as well, because there's something else I'd like to present soon. It's about we have the War of Benin in Nigeria, which was destroyed by the British, is actually more innovative than the War of China, just in case we don't know. But many Africans don't even know that exists or existed, and it was destroyed out of jealousy. So I'll be talking about that as well. So please, let's play this clip so we can see what we're up against.
It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay, and that is a big price to pay. Always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished. because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is...
All right. This gentleman, let me just quickly give you the context to this video. Are you here? If Africa do something different, the living standard of Europe and Asia and America will fall. And that is a big price to pay. We need Africa. We need them to supply our raw material, not just to supply, but we need them to be impoverished, because if they wake up and start to supply us the raw material at a price that they want, we will be out of the game. And it's a price we're not ready to pay. So that is the West. This is a man speaking for the West in a meeting where he was giving a lecture as to why Africa needs to be underdeveloped. So of course we have Ibrahim Traore trying to do so much to create that different narratives and to see things from different perspectives. I and you should continue to pray for him. As we know, recently, the former military president of Burkina Faso, with some junta, were also trying to destabilize the country. But their coup were thwarted by Ibrahim Traore's men. So there will be more to come. So we pray that he survive and able to realize his plan. But we need to keep praying for him. That is one of those videos. So please, if you want to get a full picture of this video, just type in Professor Howard Nicholas. It's a 29-minute presentation. It's very powerful. And it shows many things there that you will find, you basically be amazed. But the question is, what should we do knowing this is what the West is doing to us? We are all talking about democracy, human right, and the like of it, and the West are the one promoting it. But is this evidence of human right? Is it how to promote human right? It's like Africans' right does not exist, and they should not even exist. And they're now developing so many chemicals, even selling some chicken that they cannot sell in Europe, selling it in Africa, mentioning Nigeria and other places, GMO chickens and stuff like that. So all of this, I think we need to know. But once we know them, what do we need to do? So that is just to start, just give you some kind of context to what I'm about to talk about today. Thank you. Maybe I can share my slide from here, if that's okay.
Yes, Dr. Larry, I think you have the rest.
Share. Okay, all right, let me do that. Okay, if you can see my screen, I just need to start from the beginning. This is not the typical slide that I would like to present. This is just to mention a few things about reclaiming our heritage. And I think it is something we all can relate to. Reclaiming our heritage, the Afrocentric perspective on African civilizations and its global significance. So my name is Dr. Lawrence Jones Essen, a program director for University of York, or York St. John's University, the London campus. I currently look after global healthcare management and also business courses at the university. I'm also the CEO of the London Academy Business School. I currently in partnership with the University of Sunderland to run courses in Nigeria and also looking at other African countries. Right, so I think we're having some of my people joining right now. So we have quite a few people joining. Okay, so that's me. And why is this presentation so important to me? Well, I have been one of those who advocate for an equal citizenship of the world. But unfortunately, we Africans or Africans have been placed in a position of a second-class citizen. Just to give you one or two reasons why this is the case. Now, at the United Nations seat, 2 seats are actually reserved for Africans, but a seat that doesn't allow them to actually vote. Can you imagine having a seat at the United Nations and not able to vote? And I found that to be even insulting. But of course, it's been challenged. But that is the case that we find ourselves in. So they're trying everything possible not to allow African to have that equal right. So let's start with my introduction. African history is rich and diverse, filled with powerful kingdoms, advanced civilizations, and significant global knowledge and cultural contributions. Without a doubt, that is the case. But for us to fight for the future of where we are going, first and foremost, you need to know who you are. History of Africa is not being taught in most of the universities. And even in our primary school these days, our history is not being taught. But we need to know that. And this history is often been marginalized or even misrepresented in mainstream narratives. Thus, it is important for us to reclaim and highlight African civilization as a profound impact it has had on the world altogether. So we need to do that. And I believe using this kind of forum to educate ourselves, not just to make noise, talk, I mean, we're obviously not just spending our time, wasting our time, but to see what can we do? How can we move forward? Notably, an Afrocentric perspective allows us to see African history through the lens of its people, that is us as African, emphasizing our achievement and contribution rather than viewing them through the Eurocentric framework. For example, a typical one is the African map. I mean, I've never witnessed how one could create a narrative just to demean or to undermine the importance of Africans, first and foremost by showing the map the way it is. But I'm sure many of you know that Africa, the way it is today, if we bring in China, USA, Mexico, India, they will still have space left.
Dr. Larry, your voice is fluctuating. Sometimes you're a bit louder and then you are disappearing a bit.
Oh, okay. So quickly, let me use the other one. Just give me 1 or 2 minutes, please. Maybe somebody can quickly. I need to go into the next, the other platform quickly.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you.
All right. You can keep talking. Why I quickly change over. Play the other video. Play the other video. The second video. The lead video, please. The poem one.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Dr. Larry. And those who are joining, please tag your friends, share the link, let them join us as well, because this is an interesting and very powerful presentation that you're about to have here. And Dr. Larry is going to do his best to do us the best he can. You see, he's a program officer, he's a CEO of an institute, and there's a lot you're about to learn here. So just be close and feel free to share what you think. Once his presentation is over, also feel free to come with any question you might have, so that we can move together as a team.
Okay.
Are you okay, Dr. Larry? I've added another account.
Yes, that's right. So just 1 second. I'll come out of it.
Progress.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you better, but just reduce the volume for another device so that you don't have the echoes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it very clear?
Yeah, very clear. Just maintain that posture.
All right, great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Can you see my, let me try and unshare this one. 1 second. Okay, all right, I can't even go.
You want me to make another account also co-host?
No, it's okay. I think I can carry on with this same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, your screen is now visible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. So I'm sure you can hear me now. So as I was mentioning earlier on, Africa is such a very powerful continent, and it's big enough for many of us. And I think and we can get even 3 or 4 more countries to actually occupy the space we have. So we should be proud of who we are. And I'd like to quickly say, if possible, many of us are leaving our continent to come to the Western world. Well, I am one of those who have left 40 years ago. I'm not proud of it anymore. I feel very ashamed that I'm even saying it. But we need to see that we need to see, and I'll probably start to see Africa from the European lens, and that is not good for us. So what are some of the things that we can be proud of as African? Well, the root of Africa's civilization can be traced back to the first 3 Asian kingdoms. As you can imagine, Egypt from 3100 to 650 BCE, and also the Numba, which included the kingdom of Kema and the kingdom of Kush and all of that. And also the Aksum, which I believe is a very powerful kingdom that has actually shaped the way the world is today. And even to let you know or remind you that the European could not believe that African actually create the pyramid in Egypt. They think that actually came from aliens, people who are not human. So you can imagine how they view Africans, or how they want the world to view African. And that is for us to know. So this is just a background for us to see that we Africans should be proud of who we are. But the narrative that what we're reading today about us does not it makes us look like we're second-class citizens or that we're poor. But my presentation today is to let you know that Africa is actually one of the richest countries in the world. There's even one country in Africa, that is Congo alone. And it's one of the richest, or should be one of the richest in terms of, and without them, computer, electric cars, phones would not exist because of the cobalt that they have. And we know that. So what are some of the historical Black achievement? Let me just start from the struggle of some of the American guys like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X. We know how far this individual fought to get a Civil Rights Act in place in 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. So why am I showing this? That we need to stop talking and start acting. This is not a struggle that we will go through just by talks. But I'm not asking us to go into violence, because violence doesn't achieve more or much these days. We need to be more deliberate. We shouldn't use the same old way of doing things. Albert Einstein, many years ago, may so rest in peace, he said this, and I quote, "If we do the same thing the same way over and over again and expect a different result, something is wrong somewhere." There are things we can do these days that doesn't have to involve violence. And back in the days, many of this individual, like Martin Luther King, did a lot of things by preaching, public speaking, letting people know who we are. But of course, his life was cut short because of that. So this is not a journey that we will achieve by just talking about it. We need to kind of find a way to collaborate and take actions that could yield positive result, without a doubt. So we've seen an example of those who fought for the right of Africans in the USA. And of course, we know what they went through. But could we use the media? Could we use the number of us today all together? Could we use intellectual, the buying power of the African American or Africans around the world? Or can we use our resources to demand the right that we need? And right now we see that Ibrahim Traore is trying to launch a satellite so they can have good communications, and also try to see how they can also install nuclear power and things like that. Again, that is becoming more civilized in a way. And those are the things you cannot, if you don't have anything to sell, you don't have a seat on the high street. So you would need to start selling something, packaging stuff, selling them at the right price. That would be the best way to go. They also kind of give us some other scientific and medical contributions of Black people. We know of Dr. Charles Drew, revolutionized blood transfusion by developing large-scale blood banks. Again, many of us, when we hear Charles Drew, you might think he's a white guy. You might not even know who he is. Of course, it's a Black man who made that happen. And the first African-American woman to receive a medical patent for an invention of device using cataract surgery. Again, a Black woman. But you don't get to hear those things. And do we, even in our schools, in our universities, do we have the pictures of this individual in a science lab, in a science laboratory, on the corridor? Do we promote them? Do we actually use them as a role model? No, because we Africans don't even know our own history. We've not been allowed to see them. So what I'm trying to do today is to remind all of us things that we have that we can use to promote, to build our own confidence and talk about what we've achieved over the years. There are many of them. And then the first neurosurgeon to perform the first successful separations on occipital craniopagus twins. So two heads joined together. This man, Dr. Ben Carson, was the first person to do that successfully. Again, if that was done by a white person, that story will be in the paper, will be in the news, will be in every history, will be in every book. But do we even write about it? But no one, as I said, no one will promote you except you yourself. So no one would tell the world who we are if we're not telling ourselves. So I could sit here today and talk about other ways in which we can do things, but I want to start by how we can reclaim the narratives of who we are by telling our own story, by being convinced that there are no scientific proof to say because our colors is dark that we are unintelligent. That is not true. Actually, our color, the pigmentation in our color makes us more even superior in a way, because we're not susceptible to many diseases that many white people actually face with. So look at these three individuals. These are people who have changed, contribute to the scientific world, medical world. And I think it's important for us to see how we can promote them and link ourselves with them and know their story and tell their story. Another one, the cultural icon that we need to let you know, Maya Angelou, an acclaimed author and poet whose work, like I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, continue to inspire millions. Again, are we proud to associate with those kind of icon, African icon, Black icons? Are we proud to be proud to associate ourselves with them? Or what kind of picture, whose picture do we have that we actually are proud of? Is it Elvis Presley and others? But then we think we need to remind ourselves who we are. Another one, James Baldwin, an influential writer and social critic whose work provide profound insight into race, sexuality, and identity in America. And I actually looking at him, it was the first person I talked about a human race. And when I look at after I read his book, I started looking at, okay, there's only one race, the human race. Okay. The race word has been used to divide us. and say, when you fill out a form today looking for a job, you have to tick what race you are. African race, white race. I went to deliver a lecture at St. John's University in New York, Manhattan. And I was late for a few minutes, about 5 minutes. And I used that to start my class. I asked a Chinese woman, may I ask you, ma'am, what race are you? She goes, I'm Asian tiger. Asian tiger. Okay. And I saw another gentleman. I asked him, a white person. He said, I'm German. And I saw a black person and I asked, brother, what race are you? He goes, hey, buddy, can't you see I'm African American? But I said, ask me the same question. So when he asked me, I said, I'm of the human race. I am not African American, not African, but human, the human race. There's only one race, the human race. The pigmentation, the melanin in our body that makes us different colors does not, identify us as a race. But again, these are some of the strategy that we have seen that they've used to divide us. But what can we do to change these narratives? Do we continue that same way, or do we kick against it and find a way to replace some of those tools that are used to divide us? Those are the things I think we need to be writing about. It might be very small. For example, the narrative of being black and being white. I mean, have you ever seen a white person? Are you black? Well, I'm brown, not black. So but they call you black and white. Oh, politically correct. Is it correct? No. And what did they associate with black? What did they associate with white? How do you want to relate to it? How do you want to present those images that they present to us? How do you basically do you subscribe to it? Those are things that we need to start looking at. So some of the two people that I'd like to mention today is those who contributed, very innovative and basically make things happen that we all enjoyed today. But do you know who did it? When you go and stop by the traffic light, do you know who was behind it? Well, Garrett Morgan is the guy who invented the gas mask and the 3-position traffic light signals. He was the guy who did it, the gas mask. And when you see red light, amber, and then green, this is the guy behind it. Those things are there on the street. But when African come to the UK, oh, the white man has made life so easy. See, we have traffic lights that stops. I went to Thailand just last month, and you see countdown. Somehow almost 2, 3, 4 minutes before you can get there. But these are the things that the African person has contributed to as part of the innovation and invention back in the days. And also Madam C.J. Walker, the first female self-made millionaire in America, known for her line of hair care product for black women. And she's there. And many of us don't even know how we started having an extension and stuff like that. So that's the woman behind it. Again, thing that we can learn about and talk a lot about. And this is a very recent time where we have the political milestone. Barack Obama became one of the first Black American president in 2008. And of course, he led for 8 years, 2 terms in the office, and he did so well during his term. Of course, I was thinking that during his term, things would change for the Black folks, but unfortunately, his hands were very tight. So he was obviously installed in the office, but control everything he does. But he did his best as much as he can. And also we had the first elected female vice president who might become the president of the United States for the first time ever, a woman of Black origin. So, hey, we've come a long way. This is the idea. We've come so far. So I want us to be proud of who we are. If they can do it, we can do it as well. And we should move from simply talking about what we can do to what we must do. That is what we must do that is important to us. Because as the saying goes, A small group of committed individuals can change the world. A very small group of committed individuals can change the world. We must put our resources, our time to change things for the better. And that is one of the things that I believe we can do. I also want to mention quite a few people that you probably never heard of. Well, maybe some of you have heard of them. There's a film called The Hidden Figures. Katherine Johnson, Christine Darden, and Mary Jackson and Dorothy Vaughan. These four individuals played a very crucial role, contributing to NASA's space mission, including the successful orbit of astronaut John Glenn. Without these four individuals, that wouldn't have happened. Their story brought to light in the book and the film Hidden Figures highlight Black women's critical roles in the space race, despite facing significant racial and gender barriers. These ladies, one of them, before, she has to go to 2 or 3 blocks to use the toilet, to use the loo, back in the days, before that whites only, black only were actually broken. So this individual woman of black origin went through quite a lot, but their contribution to NASA has been phenomenal, has been so significant, but it's not something we promote as Africans. So I think we should be singing our own praises as much as possible, talk about ourselves a bit more, and then be proud of who we are, or in a nice way. But the world want everyone else to see Black people as being slaves, being unintelligent, and those who cannot make things happen. Like, just to let you know, that shouldn't be what we accept of who we are. Ancient African discovery and architectures, again, that I think is important that we share on this platform, so as to kind of give us more confidence on who we are. The Lembobo bone and Insago bone were found in South Africa and Congo in 40,000 BC and 20,000 BC, respectively. So in terms of discovery, science, we also find Africans there. It was regarded as the first mathematical calculating tool before abacus. Again, how many of us know that? So those are things that we need to try and remember and share with other people. An Earth's oldest astronomical site, known as Nepta Playa, and located in southern Egypt. It is older than the Stone Age in England. Anytime you go to Stone Age and see how the stones were put on top of each other, you just wonder, who did this? But again, we have same site in Egypt that people should go and visit. As African, we should know all the stories. I mean, when I bring my executive delegate from Africa, I take them to Stone Age. When it's Stonehenge, when they say how was this actually done? I know my time is almost up, but I'll quickly share a few other things. African Asian architectural marvel that I think is important. I mentioned the Edo Bini Castle and the Great Wall. It is an amazing site, but the British were so upset that could be done by African. They destroyed it back in the days. But it's something you need to find out about. I will be presenting on that a little while, sometimes in the future, but I think it's important. Ancient Yoruba city in Oyo, in Nigeria, again, just is an architectural marvel. And also the castle in Togo, that's what it's called, Lome, Ivory Coast. Again, a beautiful one there. And those things were actually copied. And also we have the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Also the one in Cameroon. So those are things I just like to kind of draw your attention to. So ask a question, why celebrate Black history? So we need to get involved. It educates all of us about the rich culture that we have, the heritage and historical struggles, and the triumph of Black communities, promoting empathy and understanding. Those are the reason. It's not just to go and eat rice and cook food and wear African attires. That is not what it's all about. It's about celebrating our achievement. So celebrating Black history acknowledges the profound contributions of Black individuals to society, fostering a sense of respect and appreciation. And what I want to do today is to help us to see how rich we are culturally, intellectually, and also what we've done to contribute to the rest of the world. So also again, creating positive impact that we need to strengthen the bond within our diverse community and encourage solidarity and mutual support for each other. It also should highlight Black achievement inspire future generations to pursue their goals, knowing that they stand on the shoulders of giants and have paved the way for their success. So we are not just who people promote that we are. We are people of great background and people with a lot of things we're proud of. So, of course, challenges and misconceptions are there, but what are the way forward? So the economic exploitations and social inequalities resulting from slavery and colonization have left lasting impact on African society and also even in diaspora. So shall we just leave it and say, well, let's fold our hands, nothing can. This is what we need to look at. What Ibrahim Traore is doing, all of us need to support him, and we can do the same thing as well. So many individuals in the African diaspora struggle with a sense of identity due to a disconnection from their ancestral roots. So we need to help them to connect. Africa is frequently depicted one-dimensional, focusing on poverty only, conflict, and backwardness, rather than its rich history and cultural diversity. So I think we should all educate ourselves and talk a lot about what we can do, what we are, who we are, and how we can help others appreciate. So we need to put more effort to promote Afrocentric perspective, often face resistance from established academic, social, and political institutions that benefit mainly those with the status quo. We need to kind of see how we can change that narrative, change the way people see us. So what are the future directions? Just humble suggestions. So to enhance the understanding and the appreciation of African civilization, it is crucial to increase support and funding for research that delves into the rich legacy, including architectural, historical, and also comparative studies. Additionally, organizing events like this, exhibitions, and media projects that highlight African achievement is very important, and cultural contributions that will help correct these stereotypes and misrepresentations. Collaborative effort between African and international institutions should also be encouraged to share knowledge, resources, and best practices like this. If we continue to say, oh, Nigeria is the best, Ghana is the best, Congo is the best, let's work together. Together, we could make a huge difference. There's no point seeing ourselves as different or separated from each other. We should see ourselves as one African who can make things happen. So in conclusion, reclaiming our heritage through Afrocentric allow us to appreciate the vast contributions of African civilizations by integrating African perspective into global narratives and actively addressing historical misconceptions. We can foster a more accurate, inclusive understanding of history, and this will ensure that the rich contributions of African civilizations are recognized, not only that, celebrated and appreciated worldwide. But we all have to do it together. We cannot do it individually. If we work in silos, that in itself will create problem for us. So let's work together to deliver such a beautiful continent that we have, that people, I mean, we're running out of that country, but many wants to go there and stay and find out those people, those who know the importance of our resources. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Allow me to clap for you. No, you you have really done wonderful work today. At least I saw the presentation before, but I couldn't feel it was going to be this deep. So thank you very much for this presentation, and I believe we all appreciate this. Maybe you can show by reaction if you appreciate what Dr. Larry has done. just do that by a reaction so that we can appreciate the work Dr. Alari has done to us. We don't only appreciate in the purpose of appreciation, but we appreciate the value of knowledge and information that's being shared here with us. And Dr. Larry, I want to thank you once again for creating time in the midst of your busy schedule to have at least some time to be with us based on the roles and the responsibility you play. But I really appreciate this. This is one of the constructive ways we can start engaging as a people. I know people have been saying that we have the African elites that become a challenge to us as a people. But when those who are learned and those who are educated come up and share the platform together to help lead the continent moving forward, then we now build a synergy of a people that help us move forward. So I will not waste my time also for the audience who are present. I'll allow them to actually find some time and interact and ask questions. Dr. Larry. Let me start with Victor, and anybody want to ask any question, just raise your hand so that I'll go in order. I pick 3 questions, then get back to Dr. Larry. Then now you'll respond, and you go like that for the next some few minutes that are still left with us. Let me start with Victor, whose hand is up. Victor?
Yeah, thank you so much, comrade. I think I had a very good comment and also a question, but I don't know where to start from.
Do both, based on your choice.
Okay. Let me start then with my comment. So I really appreciate the good presentation that I've really seen here. I think I've taken some time before I joined the call, but today I've really seen that we are really somewhere, and I think that is the right time for us to put all these things that we are saying into concrete action. And basically, as a continent, we know that what we face most is a systematic challenge. That is always what I say about Africa. And for us to overcome the systematic challenge, we have to reset back and understand that we are merely surviving or just trying to survive now in this global economic system or with everything that is happening to our country. And for us to start to strategize, we need to systematically strategize. We have the knowledge. We've been talking about Pan-Africanism for so long. We have the great knowledge. What we need to do is to understand how to systematize this knowledge in a way that we can institutionalize it, not just from the approach of what we want to tell other people to do, but the value component of which people can pick from Pan-Africanism. I believe that is going to be more important than continuously giving call to actions that are not really action driven. Yeah. So our strategy needs to anchor on the entire value chain. We have to understand that knowledge itself is an industry as a big component. We have to understand that the products that we produce, the whole value chain, everything that is happening on our continent has to be seen from the production, manufacturing, like the entire structural transformation of Africa, where we look at the manufacturing aspect of it and also look at even culture itself is a big industry. Even China today is selling a lot of their cultural content in our continent. So we have to understand that everything is an industry, and for everything to work well, it has to be institutionalized on a framework that is well self-monitored, which means for us to build the continent that we need, we have to build on positivity and avoid this blame game syndrome that I feel like most of us Pan-Africanism, we are really drawn into it. Most of us, I want to say that way, we are drawn into blame games. It is kind of a syndrome in quote that we try to not be in the space of the gap we see to take this in charge. Because I know that for me now as Victor, if I know that there's a gap I'm seeing in my country, if I have the ability to even craft a solution that I can walk that pathway, I know one day in time I'll get somebody to help me join, and from there we're able to build a change that is built on positivity and clear vision that is going to build the new change that we need. So my proposal is that building on positivity is important. That's why even if you have to point the West every time and again, I know they have a lot of adversities that they cost us in the country, and what we have to do is that once we build on positivity, they will even not find a formula of bringing us down, because we now see this from a point of results and futuristic approach. And the last one, which I wanted to say, is that every nation, however much big or small, they are first built on a spiritual system. And as a continent, we are really not conformed. We are just more of a religious continent that is not conformed, or we are not in harmony with the spiritual nation, which means, as always, I know sometimes we talk about this spiritual aspect of country, we discuss philosophy each and every time again here, but the nation every nation has to be defeated spiritually before it is defeated, which means when we are fragmented in the approach of a spiritual system that is governing our continent, there is no way we are going to win. So we must prioritize a pure and we anchor on this way, which is going to bring that change. And finally, just to ask a very good question. I know when it comes to Pan-Africanism, it's a global thing, but when it comes to Africa, it's another thing, which means when you are outside Africa, there's things that you feel like we can do as a global family to really change the continent. There are also other things that we need to do in the continent to make it work. And I really feel like, what is the harmonious approach? Because I know so many of our people, sometimes there are a lot of fragmented organizations that come up again every day and again in the diaspora, claiming to be bridging the gap between the African in the diaspora and Africa in the continent. And at the end of it all, there are people, sometimes their intention is not built on a conviction that is merely to really Africa. So I was like asking this in a very particular order to our speakers today, that what is the clear framework or strategic framework that you feel like from entire presentation that you've made can be made as a linkage between the diaspora or the entire global African family to really, really change the face of this continent of Africa? Thank you so much. Sorry for the long talk.
Thank you so much, Victor. Really appreciate your question. I mean, one of the things we can do is what we are doing now. That is connecting together. And you see, I mean, but you see, it's not an easy thing. I want to thank Comrade for the hard work he's doing. I hope we are paying you for what you do, because giving us your time every week to organize this, designing the flyers for each presentation, and also making sure this Zoom is engaging to all of us, or we have it on a regular basis. We need to make a contribution. So we need to kind of find a way to support each other, because sometimes we start this program, this kind of issues, we don't support it, we don't contribute to it, and we don't prepare for it. And after a while, if we don't do that, this forum will be shut down once again, and that's it. And then we'll be looking for another one again. And then just simply because we're not giving it enough attention. And if we hear that Arsenal is playing today, and they're showing it in one of the pub or beer parlor, as they call it, many will sit there for hours for 90 minutes to see, and after that, drink and drink and drink. But here, we're talking about once a week or once in 2 weeks, to talk about bringing some contribution together on how we can develop our continent. I think it's one of the things we should do. And we should also be seeing anything we can read that could help us to get more information that we can use to develop our country and support each other. Someone mentioned money, funding. African goes, I mean, can you imagine the whole of 52 head of state traveled to China, one country, and they're giving 62 billion. For goodness sake, that is an insult in itself, because what Kenya is collecting in terms of resources can in itself take care of 8 countries in Africa, just Kenya alone. So which means we have the money, we have the resources. Why do we have to go to China to collect money? We're letting ourselves down. And one thing China does, once you collect money from them, they can come to your country and dictate to you how to spend that money. And they were doing something in Ghana before the Ghanaian authority, kick against it. So I must say that we need to start finding ways now, even from this platform, we could start to make contribution and to start creating, finding jobs for people, for our young people. And if any one of them is in trouble or crisis, we can find a way to help. So let's start doing something that will become a landmark. Let's create a website for this program. I'm sure maybe we have, I'm not sure if we have already or not. Let's create a website that we can make contribution, and from there, find sponsors. And there are a lot of platforms that we can use to GoFundMe. We can develop a project. We can develop an app that could start to solve some of the issues that we have in Africa. And that is how to go. So we shouldn't just allow this opportunity to die off. From the app we develop, from businesses we develop, we can start to generate income that could sponsor and actually maintain this platform going forward. So that's what I would say. Let's not just make it a talk show. Let's kind of unite by bringing more ideas together and to create a future that our children can be proud of. Thank you, Victor.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Larry, for that. And anybody who might want to ask any question, feel free to raise your hand. I really feel to come into this moment. I really appreciate your response as you put it, because one of the things that was really lacking, and what we saw from Consciousism when it came to the Saturday conversation, is that we were really lacking a platform for conversation. You see, we really need to have this conversation, no matter how people think about it. But at least having a platform where you, Dr. Larry, can share with us, wherever in Kenya or whatever, and get to tap and understand what's going on, get to know what's on the ground, and try to see what's moving and coming together. It's very important. It's the first step towards progress, because you cannot make any progress if you don't converse. And we've tried our best for the last 3 years. I've been here for the last 2 years. We've never missed any Saturday or any Thursday per week. We've done it for 2 years consistently. No day we ever missed anything or any day. We've done our best to ensure that we upload all the recordings every day. Of course, what you are bringing on board, Dr. Larry, is something I've also observed. The lack of support and commitment is one thing that is going to bring us down as a continent, as a Pan-African people. Because no matter how little some of us do, if it's not supported by some little gesture of support and appreciation, we might give up in the process, because everybody's in the struggle trying to do one or two things. But the little support we have to give each other is what keeps us moving. And I really appreciate, for example, one example I'll tell you, when I started civic education like 2 weeks ago, the next week some friends who saw it from UK, whatever, gave me another money. And I started with 40 booklets I shared in the public vehicles when I'm doing what you call civic education, telling people about these neocolonial debts and governance and everything else. I got 40 printing. The next weekend when I went to the street, I was having 120 copies. And it was a friend who gave it. This week already, there are some few friends who have given. I might be able to have another 300 copies that I'm printing and sharing to the people to spread the knowledge. So this is the beginning of this. But another aspect you are saying, Dr. Larry, is very important, is the sustainability of our programs. I've been reading this book, The Rise of the New World Order. We must have programs, businesses, like what Marcus Garvey was doing. Marcus Garvey was building a fully self-funded organizational community. So we need to have programs. We need to have other businesses running for Pan-African that support the Pan-African agenda. We need to have schools running that supports our institutions. So I think the biggest thing is the sustainability. First is the support to start the program and support the initiatives. But second is a long-term sustainability mechanism that can maintain us without depending on other people who will then put in their measures, their rules, and the instruction on how we conduct our things. Because if they come in that way, we'll be compromised. So that's basically what I really wanted to add in. But thank you for what you're bringing. It's really very important that you have this conversation. We have been even trying to tap the Caribbean to this conversation, because long before, we were having less Caribbean coming in. We've been bringing some people from the Caribbean. We share and we feel like we're one people. So I really want to appreciate that point you raised, and also what Victor was trying to bring on board. Let me get to Carrington, then Sister Tapua.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much to the presenter. Thank you very much to the host. I just wanted to bring up this issue Brother Esan has brought of science and technology. I think this was a wonderful presentation of science and technology, and I have been meaning to put up something exactly like this, but I've been beaten to the punch, and I'm very happy that this has been done. Science and technology played a very important role in our past. as has been pointed out by the presenter. Medicine in Bunyoro Kitara. The Bunyoro Kitara Empire in the border of Uganda and Kenya was conducting cesarean sections. It was conducting brain surgeries. People would come from all corners of the empire to sit down, doctors, to sit down and exchange practices, methods, challenges that they were facing in their respective provinces. And this was 400, 500 years ago. We are familiar with the Ashanti science and technology, that when the Europeans, the Dutch, the Englishmen came to the coastline of Ghana, they found that the Ashanti had advanced soap, this famous black soap, that had vaccine properties that could protect basically the people of their pan from diseases, from smallpox, etc. So it is clear that we cannot live in a continent for 300,000 years without inventing scientific and technological products to adapt to the needs of that continent, of Africa. And you know, Africa is a very, very challenging terrain environmentally. Another one is the Congo. So there's this very interesting story that the Portuguese, just after the Industrial Revolution, tried to sell their steel to the Bakongo, a kingdom, a large kingdom in Angola and in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But this Bakongo kingdom rejected Portuguese steel. Why? It was low quality. Why was it low quality? Because the temperatures of the furnaces in Portugal under which this steel was produced were lower than those of the iron foundries of the Bakongo. So what ended up happening is that the Portuguese bought steel, high quality steel, from the Bakongo to sell in Europe. We do not know this. We have not been told this. I have never been told this in school. And therefore, I grew up assuming that in terms of science and technology, we were generally behind the rest of the world. And of course, the examples of modern science and technology, the mathematicians who helped calculate trajectories for the rockets going to the moon and taking orbit around the Earth. These were Black women. These were Black women doing these calculations and inventing shortcuts to compute results very precisely and very fast. The first women programmers of computers were Black women. Yeah. So it is clear that there is intellectual capacity. What I would like to ask Brother Esan is this: what can we do to make sure that this knowledge, that science and technology has been part of our past and is part of our present, for example, M-Pesa in Kenya and East Africa, and therefore it should be part of our future, and that we should invest much, much more in science and technological development, because this is the secret to political power in the 21st century and the 22nd century. What can we do here? I would like for people to Google science and technology in ancient Africa, the Wikipedia page, and just print it out entirely and read it from the first page to the last, and give it to young people in your families to read, so that this confidence goes further. But I would really love to know, what can we do here? I am very interested in that. Second, it is my dream to build an advanced Pan-African University of Science and Technology, somewhere in Kenya, somewhere in East Africa, but it really doesn't matter, because it will be Pan-African. Wherever the conditions will be right, this is where that university will be. The idea is to attract the best and brightest in Africa, to give them all the material conditions so that they can research, study, and do technological development in the continent without having to leave the continent, and to be remunerated properly so that they can develop new goods and products and services for the African continent. So I was very excited by this. This is exactly my passion project. I hope it works out at some point in the future, but thank you very much for the presenter. I appreciate. So what can we do to take on? Thank you.
Dr. Larry, I'll allow you to answer that from Brother Carrington before I give Sister Tapua.
Okay, thank you so much, Tapua. I think your passion is very...
That's Carrington, Dr. Larry. The one who has spoken is Brother Carrington. Brother Carrington is a physicist actually now in UK, but he's from
Okay.
Kenya and is a resident physicist in our philosophy.
Oh, wow. I would like to, it would be nice for us to meet up. But I guess what you've actually answered the question yourself. Working together to promote what you just mentioned, the most important thing. For example, without Black people in Britain, the healthcare system will collapse. I mean, without exaggeration, most of the nurses are from the minority ethnic group. The Nigerians, the Ghanaians, and also in the past, we used to have the Filipinos and also other Indians as well. So there's a need for us to work together, to come together and to look into that. And rather than just working, because what I've seen, majority of us, when we come to this country, we get into healthcare job. But which part of healthcare? Where we just do work in the home, care homes. These care homes is just where we, claim bomb, watch people and care for people. But there are more things that we can do. Biotechnology, it's very important. And I think we need to kind of look at. And telemedicine is the way forward. Disease prevention and control, way forward. Traditional medicine, which we're not promoting. Before the Queen died, I went to a building of one of the palaces after M4. I can't remember the name now. So you can imagine this queen have a farm behind a castle. She doesn't like to take any medicine because they believe every medicine we take have its own side effect. So they prefer herbal medicine. And we Africans don't even want to promote it. We need to start remembering that before the advent of medicine, all this thing that we mix together, Africans survive longer with good health. So why don't we just start looking at how we can promote traditional medicine, alternative medicine, I call it. So I think with the vast knowledge of African and all the herbs that we have, and the Chinese, you probably know this, the Chinese actually thrive a lot more on herbal medicine. And why are we not? The only thing that we have as a challenge is packaging. And so we need to start looking into that. I think that's one of the things we need to look into and promote that. That will also help us to get ourselves back on the platform. And of course, ICT, using ICT for diagnosis, treatment. That is also another way to look into. So I believe as this group progresses, we will start to look at how we can use one of this forum to start putting together either writing papers, writing articles, and promoting and actually publishing articles based on from the background of Brother Carrington. It would be good for us to start, writing papers and articles and making it on a regular basis and start printing and basically sharing our journals and articles on how we can develop. So find a solution, but I will think about the question more properly and probably send you a more constructive research rather than just getting off the curve off the top of my head. But right now, I think I need to think about it deeply and provide more solution to that. But thank you for the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response. Because of time, let me allow Tapua and Sister Ida to come in. Sister Tapua?
Thank you. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Larry, and thank you to Brother Carrington for your contribution, because it partly answered, it's partly touched on a suggestion I needed to make. Whilst we're talking about the unification of Africa, I think we need to talk about the unification of Africans, because what I've noticed is, with the advent of Black History Month and Black History anything in the Western world, Blacks in the West have now taken the opportunity to highlight what Blacks in the West have done. What we now need is to highlight what the Blacks on the continent have done, which is what Brother Carrington has touched on. Because as we look at our history, we have ancient African history, and then we move from ancient African history to slave trade or to Black history in the diaspora. And it's almost as if there's this big gulf of what happens to the Black people between ancient African history and the triangular slave trade. So what we possibly need to do is consciously make an effort that each time we're presenting or talking about something, we want both sides of the coin covered. And by this, I mean Caribbean examples, African examples, because the struggles that were happening in the Americas with Martin Luther King and everyone else, there were parallel examples happening on the African continent. So as we are presenting those, let's also try and present the other side of the coin. Because like Dr. Larry is saying, we need to consciously make an effort to illustrate the struggles, the unity in the struggles that we were facing, and how we were trying to work through those, so that as our history is told, it's told as one history, not as American history or Black African history, but as the people's history, so that we're saying, whilst this was happening in the Americas, this is what the Africans on the continent were doing, which is what happened with Nkrumah, because it was partly because of his experiences in the West that he brought into his philosophies on Africa and understanding the African struggle. So we need to straddle that to make sure that we're consciously doing that all the time. I would also like to say, and I was filled with admiration, I tried by all means sending my contribution to my brother, because I admire the practical going out into the field, printing information. And I think because, Brother Odinga, you've opened the door. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us what you're putting in those booklets so that we can maybe copy and do the same here. And I'm also very grateful for the information that we've been given on, is it ancient African medicine? I've made a request on the chat, because I think it's that information that we need. Some of us are keen, but we don't know where to get the information. So if we get to know where to get the information or what others are doing in the different parts of the world, then we can duplicate, we can feed on each other and efforts, and then propagate this. I think I'll stop here for now.
Yeah,
But I think that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Tapua, and sorry for cutting you short, Mav. We have 5 minutes to go, but thank you. I'll react to some of the few things you've raised once Dr. Larry come in and finalize. But Sister Ida?
I want to thank Brother Larry about his contribution tonight. And I also want to say to you all that you know, Brother Glenroy has been telling us all for a long time that the people who were enslaved were often the most literate and the most and had knowledge of technology, hence the bridges, steel bridges and other things, and ironworks that were taken abroad. And he tells us that, and he's been telling us that for a few years now. And then bingo, this week, Brother Coco put something on his status. He often has very interesting status things that come out. And he put about, Brother Coco, you're going to have to help me, about a Muslim enslaved man, was he from the Gambia or Sierra Leone, who had spent 25 years studying and then was enslaved and then started writing in Arabic when he was put in jail. And I thought, look at the link, it's coming through, it's coming. And and so to continue with what Sister Tapar was saying, I think that those of you who know some of this history should start also including it in your statement, because we're all listening, we're all watching, we're all seeing things, and eventually those links, you can start linking things up, you know, and so that's really what I want to say. And I'd encourage Brother Coco to tell us the name of this Muslim enslaved man, because he's become a very important person in America. Thank you. I'd never heard of him till this week. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. I know Brother Cook might be coming later. We have 3 minutes to end. But I looked forward to giving Dr. Larry this opportunity to probably put towards what he feels. Of course, he has said what he feels practical, but his answer towards some of the few things that have been made and what is the potential collaborative mechanism. Brother Larry, I'm still insisting because you have an opportunity, you have an institution, you have programs you're doing, and by this opportunity of sharing what we try to do, some of our members here can tap to some of your programs, and that's how we build synergy. It's not a must that we must be in the same church, as they say, so that we preach the same gospel. But as long as we preach the gospel of liberation, if there's a way some of members here can be of help to what you do, or you can be of help of what we do, that's how we build up together. So I'll really be interested in this session as we come to an end. Respond to some things that have been raised. Give us what you think also, what needs to be done as you've said some, but also how can we tap into some of the activities you are doing so that together we can move. Because I know whatever you're doing, you're also doing it for the benefit of us as a people and in whatever space you are. So please, Dr. Larry.
Thank you so much. I mean, first, what I would like to mention is that I will be speaking to you behind the closed door to see how we can make some contribution to what you do and to support you in that respect. But also, I'd like to also quickly mention of tapping the website. Well, as I mentioned, we are currently looking to set up the University of Sunderland in Nigeria, which we're also looking at setting up in Kenya eventually. We have spoken to the I think it's called the I remember the name now. It's a university in Kenya, which we're actually speaking to them, and they've accepted for us to come in there. So what I would like to say is that we would be having any of the members on this platform who want to do any of our program. We also organize an executive education program, which we would like to invite you to join, and we can run those courses at even no cost to any of the members of this platform. And we can also organize courses that is topic that is chosen by the team. So we can actually get a speaker to do that. And once you actually attend the course, you also be certificated as well. And I believe that is going forward. Let me just give you an idea. If you come to the UK to do University of Sunderland program, like undergraduate, every year you pay around about £9,500 to do the course per year. For a master's degree, they charge you £14,000 if you come to the UK. So, and in my class alone, I have over 500 Africans in my class alone. And those are medical doctors who come to do the master's degree, paying £14,000. Just imagine that in my class, I have that. That is just in York St. John's University. If you go to other universities, the same. All Africans are there. And these people are those who can afford to buy ticket and even come with their wives and children into the UK. Imagine the amount of capital flight from Africa. And we are saying we are poor. Meanwhile, they are using our money to actually fund their own economy. But we're not thinking thinking of it from that direction. Now, what I've done is say, okay, I will take the university to Nigeria. That's over 220 million people, and charge them only £3,500 for the same qualification, and ask them to pay by installment, 50% to start with, and then the rest by installment. And that is the way, so that you have that same qualification, but it is being taught in a different way, because I also have mentioned to my team, we're not going to be using examples of Leeds, Birmingham, Manchester, and the like of things like that. No, we need to start using our own African narratives as an example that we use in the classroom. That was what helped the Chinese. After the Second World War, the Chinese went back into the shell and created their own. They teach mathematics in their own language. But you cannot learn mathematics in any African languages up to now. Even the keyboard that we use is either the UK keyboard and also the American keyboard. The Chinese have their own keyboard. How many Africans have their own keyboard? Those are the things that we can use to start changing. Now, I've created ABC. When I was growing up, I know A is apple, B is ball. That's what we're taught. Something that is abstract to what I know or I've seen. So I've created ABC in our own dialect. I'm currently using it for the three main languages in Nigeria, Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. So created ABC in those languages and use things that people can relate to. Start selling it. Start training young people to understand their own history, understand their own dialect. These are the way we can start to change those narratives. And I wouldn't mind basically linking that suggestions to this group, that this idea come from this group, or we're contributing to this group, to make sure we start to change or roll out something, so some development, some innovation that will link to this group. And so this group will start to gain momentum and gain the popularity that it deserves and things like that. That is the way to go. So, and I've spent over 300 million. I'm not saying it just to make an history of my own money without any contribution, trying to change things. But I'm having difficulties even just to get the permission to do so in Nigeria. So we have to start lobbying government. It's just incredible how we make our life so difficult. But again, we get to know about this as we move along. But I want us to start doing something together to change the way things are done. If Africans are coming for the UK qualification, let's take it to them. If that is what they want, let's take it to them at a cheaper rate so we can keep the money back home and change the way things are. If we're running away from Africa, coming down here, we're going to come and work as security, taxi drivers, and the like of it. Meanwhile, they go over there, we give them a big house, driver, and everything else, which they don't deserve even in their own country. But I think we need to start finding ways to change the way we do things, but not by fighting, but by working together in a strategic way, and to kind of work together to understand each other and then develop our own pathway to success. Let's start asking them to negotiate for what we have, not just coming to kill us to get it. Let's start standing our own ground and basically showing how intelligent we are as well, by not shouting, but by talking and writing about it as well. That's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Larry. Indeed, you've touched the cornerstone of this, that we sit here to see how we can share what we do and how we can get directly to work together in our respective efforts. I've appreciated those who have come on board and joined what I do. And by sharing what we do, we can come on board and build forces, because we have people in Zimbabwe, we have people in South Africa, we have people in Ghana here. How do we tap together and work together? So this was a nice presentation, and I really appreciate this. Anybody who need contact of Dr. Larry, we've engaged Dr. Larry a lot. We as CSG have been trying to convert our study into a course. And we will still be working on this, on how we can have a framework. We already have a curriculum development. We have a dictionary for it. We are trying to see how we can convert the consciousness book into a course, a philosophy course that can be offered to people who can then learn it and do it. And that's the long way we are looking at it. We've been doing translation of this book. I've done it in Swahili. I'm looking for somebody who can help me do it in Yoruba, do it in many other things, so that we can reach it in our own basis level. But there's a lot that we can do together. Only if we come and talk together.
There's one man here, Stephen, who wants to say something.
Yeah, Stephen, just quickly, because I'm ending the class now. Stephen? Stephen,
are you there?
Stephen?
I'm trying to unmute myself. I don't know whether I'm communicating.
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. And good evening, the moderator. My name is Stephen Owolabi, and thank you very much for inviting me. I must say, thank you, Dr. Larry, once again, for this priceless, educative information you just gave to us. You have made me to be proud of being a Nigerian and being an African. And you will never be disappointed. You are building a team of informed people, which I am one of them. For me to tell the house, sir, moderator, I am one of the students of London Academic Business School. I'm doing my MBBA top-up at the moment. So, Dr. Larry, that you have here, have a lot of things to say. But this one that you just said this night, I'm telling you, it's just a pinch of salt. My question is, I would like you, if it is possible, to be able to be doing this more and more, so that we'll get thousands, millions of people to be more informed. All Africa. Dr. Larry is ready to do a lot of things. He's trying as much as possible to have people to be informed, so I'll be able to have this goal achieved. You can see in the last statement he made, say he has spent a lot, but he's having difficulties in even to just get certification in running things. So if you can have 1, 2, 3 people that are involved that can get to places, knock doors, and get it open for him to be able to achieve this goal, it will help our generations to come. So it is not a question I want to ask. It is like to push us forward in ensuring that this goal that Dr. Larry is driving us, as is this information he has passed through this night, we should just not go and sleep. We need to stand up and ensure that we take our continent back. Our generation must not go back to slavery in another dimension. Dr. Larry, thank you very much, sir. God bless you more and more. And may God continue to keep you and give you the strength and all sufficiency that you will need to ensure this goal is being achieved. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Dr. Larry, thank you very much once again. We've done a lot, we engaged in a lot, and I think it was beyond even the historical aspect you brought, but the aspect of us working together and pushing forward to this. Yes, as I've said, we really need to move forward. I've been doing some things. People have raised issues here. There are people who have helped. Brothers here and sisters here have come in and chip in to see how they can help. I was starting that civic education to raise the consciousness of the people, starting with a few things. If you look at my booklet, and whatever I've done on my booklet, I started with the revolutionary quotes that speak to the mind of the people, which one day probably I'll share with members in the forum, because I've worked a lot on the revolutionary quotes to awaken the mind of the people. I've done the financial compilation of expenditures, but I'm trying to push it forward as I develop this and advance it, so that I can go in different public spaces, speak to people, because I believe, as much as I'm political maybe interested, there's nothing that can be achieved if you don't liberate the mind of the people. Because it's basically the mind of the people that need to be awake, and that way we can achieve everything else. So we as Consciousness Study Group do appreciate everyone who has joined us today. We do appreciate you, Dr. Larry. Of course, Dr. Larry's son is Brother Kwame Christian, our chair, who is not present with us. Know Dr. Larry's son very well. He introduced me to Dr. Larry early this year. We've been trying to do something with him. And Dr. Larry's son is also related to Professor Esan, who did a presentation to us some times back on the traditional education methodologies. And of course, it's Satapua here from Zimbabwe is also an academia or educationist, a teacher who can also be interested to see how we can expand our sources to Zimbabwe aspect. We have Ras Pala from South Africa, who has also been doing a lot in the African education and the history of the original Africans from South Africa. They can also be here. We have Dr. Mafole Semante from Lesotho. He's done a program on building civil learning society or community readiness for change to liberate our mind. So he's also here from Lesotho. We have Brother Coco here, who also do a lot from Lesotho. And we have a group of people here who've been doing different. We have Brother Victor here, who is an IT, tech IT. He's doing so many programs. He started a Pan-Africa conversation show, and he's doing other things to bring the Pan-Africa Solidarity Fund and many other things. So we have groups of people here who are already doing something, and just a moment of how can we tap and connect together so that we amplify our initiatives to a global stage so that we can reach to our brothers and sisters across the continent and within the continent. And this is our bigger goal on action. Because philosophy is of thought, but out of the philosophy, we can move to action. And action call upon us to work together, identify what we do, and execute it for the benefit of our people. So once again, comrades, permit me to appreciate your presence, your time, and your forever engagement for the last 2 years, 3 years, and there are people who have done it for 10 years just doing this class we do every day. So Dr. Larry, once again, thank you very much for your time. You are our presentation, and with your permission, I'll be able to share the presentation to the wider broadcast list so people might be interested. And if you need maybe to do some draft a bit on personality, people might be interested because we have a broadcast of over 250 people who might also be interested to tap and connect. Those in UK and those in the continent, we can discuss this and see how we can work together and synergize for this purpose. We look forward to be sharing these presentations by Monday or Tuesday. And also on Thursday, we'll continue our conversation on our studies every day. I also offer Swahili lessons for free on Pan-African using the Consciousness Study Group every Tuesday. I do offer Swahili lessons as I'm teacher of Swahili. And we have few people who have been joining, but I beg that more people should be joining so that we also be able to learn Swahili together, so that we learn a language that can unite us as a people without speaking the white man language here as we do. So without much ado, Sister Ida, do you have maybe a minute or a word to close for us this session for today, now that Brother Kwame is not around? Sister Ida?
Sorry, I hear you. Yes. Thank you all for coming. And can I say that it was a very, very interesting conversation tonight. And I wish you all well for the week ahead. Thank you all very much. Bye for now. Good night.
Good night to you all. And let's meet again next Saturday. I'll be announcing the program for the next Saturday. Have a blessed evening.